There are layers upon layers to explore in the ending of Cocaine Bear. Or are there? Let's find out what's going on between the lines. When Sari finally finds Dee Dee at the end of Cocaine Bear, she's taking shelter in the bear's own cave. Presumably, the bear took her there, although the logistics of the whole thing are kind of brushed over. It takes Sari and Henry all day to track Dee Dee down, so she must have gotten to the cave pretty fast after the initial attack. Then there are even more questions, like why the bear didn't eat her. Best not to overthink it. Anyway, Sari and Henry's arrival at the bear lair brings a not-so-shocking revelation. The bear itself, revealed earlier to be female, has 2 cubs. And yes, they also got into that nasty powder. According to Smithsonian Magazine, mother bears have been known to use humans as protection for their offspring, though not quite in a kidnap you and take you to live in my cave kind of way. But with her brain chemistry being effectively rewritten by the dope, maybe the cocaine bear was hoping for Dee Dee to act as a kind of guardian. The common idea that mama bears often defend their cubs from humans aggressively is widely disputed, however. The cocaine bear doesn't seem to be protective as much as she is manic and hooked. Alas, these violent delights have violent ends, and the ending of Cocaine Bear is nothing if not Shakespearean. Before Sari can get Dee Dee and Henry out of the Cocaine Bear's cave, Sid and his crew show up. They find a good amount of dope stashed under the cubs' noses, but Sid isn't satisfied. He reminds Eddie of his earlier threats that the cartel from which he gets his shipments will come for them both, and for Eddie's own son, if they don't reclaim the drugs. While this may be true, no one else in the gang seems gung-ho to continue the hunt. Crooked Officer Reba decides she's had it with the whole ordeal, and declares her intention to leave. When Sid pulls a gun on her, David steps in the way. It's a pretty surprising move, given how much David has been willing to give up. His fingers, for instance, in pursuit of the cocaine. But even he, Sid's most loyal follower, seems to have hit his limit. This is a kind of deeply human question that Cocaine Bear was clearly conceived to explore. What is the breaking point of someone who's dedicated themselves to a life of crime? When is enough enough? For David, it comes in the middle of the bear cave, his literal darkest moment in the movie. The titular behemoth isn't the only mama to be reckoned with in Cocaine Bear. Sari proves to be quite the force of nature herself when push comes to shove, willing to do anything to defend her own cubs. When Sid confronts her, Dee Dee and Henry as they're escaping the cave, she shows no sign of fear. Even when he starts waving his gun around, it doesn't shake her. When she finesses that same gun into her own hands, her unwavering bravery becomes even more apparent. Wanting nothing more than to be rid of the cocaine, the bear, and the assembled gang of crooks for good, Sari leaps off her perch with the kids in tow into the rushing water beneath the waterfall. Lo and behold, Mama Bear gets her cubs out safe. It's a triumphant moment. There is no greater power, Cocaine Bear seems to say, than that of a mother fighting for her children. In a way, Cocaine Bear acts as its own PSA in the style of the old anti-drug commercials montaged at its start. The lesson seems to be, don't become a cocaine kingpin, because if you do, a 400-pound black bear will rip out your entrails and feed them to her babies.
Drugs, especially cocaine, are very, very bad.
Clearly, Sid didn't get that memo. When everyone else, including his own son, insists that their venture is foolhardy, Sid remains dedicated. Even without his gun, he refuses to abandon the cause. So Eddie and David leave him. For a moment, it looks like the villain who represents the evil machinations of the underworld at large might win. But then Cocaine Bear tears open Sid's guts, and her cubs feast. This scene is particularly wild given that Cocaine Bear was the last movie Ray Liotta filmed before his death. But according to director Elizabeth Banks, he was a huge fan of his absurd role. Banks said at the film's premiere, he came in for ADR 8 days before he passed away, actually, and he loved it. He was so happy. He was laughing. It was just delightful. Liotta's absurd turn as Sid is a memorable one, worthy of the late star's impressive body of work. The original true story that inspired Cocaine Bear didn't exactly have a happy ending for the bear, though it was certainly preferable for the humans involved. The story only emerged after the bear's dead body was discovered in the woods next to a good portion of the discarded dope. There was no rampage, no cinematic bloodbath, just a poor, innocent animal whose body gave out after ingesting an ungodly amount of the stuff. Cocaine Bear gives its titular character a more optimistic ending. Despite absorbing a similarly massive quantity of Colombian white, the mama bear and her cubs all seem fine at the end of the movie. Given the sad story of the actual Cocaine Bear, dubbed Pablo Escobar after its death, it's nice to see the movie version go out on a happier note. In an interview with Entertainment Weekly prior to the release of the film, Elizabeth Banks said she saw her version as a revenge story for the bear.
Cokie, we call the bear Cokie.
On-screen text at the end of Cocaine Bear says a good portion of the dumped drugs wind up unaccounted for. It's difficult to pinpoint how accurate that is to the true story. But in the movie, viewers see at least one full duffel bag escape in the hands of Stash. 1/3 of the misguided knife gang known as the Deschamps, Stash is the only one to survive the film. What becomes of Stash is difficult to say, but that's part of the grand Kubrickian labyrinth that makes Cocaine Bear so complex. Regardless, it's a good thing he keeps the powder out of the mouths of the sheep in the truck he catches a ride in. Cocaine Sheep just doesn't have the same ring to it.
I don't have to listen to this.
What is Cocaine Bear really about? Like the epic poetry that is the Fast and Furious franchise, it's a story about family, but specifically the relationships between parents and their children. Nearly every core character has some kind of parent-child relationship that ties them to this central theme. There's obviously the bear herself, who fights to protect her cubs, and Sari, who ventures into danger to ensure her daughter's safety. When Sid demands to know who Sari is during the climax, she responds simply, "A mom." In the moment, it's all that matters. In the same scene, Henry gives Sid a piece of his own mind, saying, "You're a piece of crap person and a bad dad." In the lattice somatic framework of the film, the second indictment is even more cutting than the first. Sid is a bad dad. Rather than console Eddie after the loss of his love, Joan, he prods and tricks him into rejoining the crooked family business, one that Eddie now despises.
I don't like this, please stop!
To be fair, Eddie has been lacking in the parental department, but he steps back into his duties as a father with a puppy in tow, and possibly on blow at the end of the story. With David by his side and a near-death experience behind him, it seems like he's on the right path. It's also nice to see a happy ending for Rosette the dog, who functionally serves as a child figure for Detective Bob. The veteran cop may die unceremoniously atop a gazebo, but his last thoughts are of Rosette. This sweet moment connects Bob to the greater thematic tapestry of Cocaine Bear, reaffirming the film's literary merit. Another major theme running through the bloodstream of Cocaine Bear is the utter incompetence of American institutions. Elizabeth Banks has spoken about Cocaine Bear being about America's failed war on drugs, and there's clear satire in the film's take on both law enforcement and the narcotics trade. Early on, when Sari joins up with Park Ranger Liz, she seems surprised that the other woman has a gun. As Liz responds, "Park Rangers are peace officers. That means we can shoot people." The paradox of her reply is just one of the film's jabs at the law enforcement establishment, portrayed throughout as bumbling and ineffectual. Later on, while trying to kill the bear, Liz shoots one of the Deschamps in the back of the head. This takedown of institutions extends to the drug business itself. The fact that Andrew Thornton, who was a narcotics officer for the government before jumping the fence and becoming a smuggler, by the way, dies jumping out of his airplane, it's just ridiculous. But then that's one of the parts of the movie that's completely true to fact. Sid ends up getting eaten under a waterfall in the middle of nowhere, all because the people he works with are rotten at their jobs. If there's a final resounding message that Cocaine Bear seems to endorse, it's that no matter how much humans subdue and bend nature, it will never be fully conquered. At the end of the movie, that's certainly true. Supposed wildlife expert and animal rights activist Peter acts as a kind of incompetent wall against which the film spatters the brute force of nature. He calls animals friends because he doesn't like to call them animals, and he's incensed when he learns that someone must have set the bear off somehow.
Did you feed it cocaine?
Peter clearly has good intentions, but his view of the natural world as a child that must be protected is ill-equipped to deal with reality. Humans do ravage the natural environment daily. It's equally true that nature bites back, be it diseases, natural disasters, or bears. Cocaine Bear is a rare exception in today's blockbuster landscape, an exciting, unique film based on no pre-existing IP and with no apparent intention of spawning sequels. But this is 2023, and a movie is only as valuable as the studio's ability to turn it into a franchise. While the bear herself is alive and well at the end of the movie, a sequel hardly seems like it would have much story to stand on. No sequel plans have been announced. Then again, before the film was even released to theaters, soon-to-be viewers took to the internet to discuss the possibility of a so-called cocaine shark, after several tons of the drug were found floating off the coast of New Zealand. Somewhere, somebody is undoubtedly optioning the rights. Even Elizabeth Banks had a response when people asked her about it, saying, "I've seen that. If there's a great story, then sure. Jaws with cocaine. I don't see how that loses." Branching out into the rest of the animal kingdom for more movies like Cocaine Bear sounds like the smarter move, should Universal decide to go that route. The possibilities are endless.
Cocaine Rat's gotten quite mad and is trying to escape out of his cage here.
However, Cocaine Bear would likely be remembered best for what it is right now, a one-off goof spoof of a wild true story about the war on drugs, parenthood, and a massive bear on cocaine.